You found it. It's the real news with your host, David Knight.
All right, let's go to the breaking news out of Venezuela. And here's what's happening in kitchens across Venezuela.
Until I hear snap, crackle, pop.
That's right. Eventually, as Margaret Thatcher said, in socialism, you run out of other people's money. Go ahead and cut that. Eventually, you run out of other people's money, and in Venezuela, you're running out of snap, crackle, and pop. This is a very large factory, Kellogg. People showed up to work, and they didn't have any advance notice. They saw a note taped to the fence. So the company had ended operations. They said the current economic and social deterioration of the country has now prompted the company to discontinue operations. And as New American points out, Kellogg's had been making cereal in Venezuela since 1961. At one point, they were the largest foreign presence in South America after Mexico. But they had to shut it down because of a lot of factors that are unique to the socialists. You know, they're going to say it's not their fault, of course, right? It's not the socialists' fault. They've been overcome by circumstances, and it's probably those evil capitalists. As a matter of fact, they're saying, well, why did they do this right before the election? These people are trying to make sure that I don't get reelected. No, the reality is it's the hyperinflation, and as Kellogg said, they can't bring in the raw materials to make the snap, crackle, pop because they've got currency restrictions from Maduro. So they can't pay for the raw materials to come in to make the cereal. It's led to critical shortages. And also, the people who are there don't have the money to buy the snap, crackle, pop. That's the reality of the situation. They may run out of other people's money, but they never run out of excuses. And then that happened at the beginning of the week. Now, after that, a couple of days after that, the government said, we have now handed over control of the factory to the workers. The workers will continue to make snap, crackle, and pop, except they won't have any raw materials and they won't have any customers who can buy their products. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. You know, some other companies that have gone out of business in Venezuela are Bridgestone, Kimberly-Clark, General Mills, and Colgate-Palmolive. And it's not Venezuela's fault. So even though they have a massive amount of, their economy is running 95% of their income is from oil. And thanks to the policies of the military-industrial complex and President Trump, we now have, with the Iran situation, we have a massive increase in the price of oil. Saudis aren't going to do anything to bring that down. That's exactly why the Saudis wanted this to happen. And so oil has gone up over $80 a barrel. OPEC's not doing anything to increase production. Venezuela is going bankrupt because they can't produce something that they have in massive quantities. They just can't get this stuff out of the ground. They don't know how to do it. The socialists don't know how to do this. So, but instead, they're going to blame not socialism. They're going to blame the U.S., even though the U.S. policies are helping them. So it's the hyperinflation, it's the hunger, it's everything else. It's armed gangs. You've got Colombian guerrilla groups operating unchecked on the borders. You've got pro-government militias terrorizing urban areas. Police are standing accused of extrajudicial killings. 4 of the 10 most dangerous cities in the world are now in Venezuela, according to a Brazilian think tank. That may be why Brazil is trying to make sure that they don't get a massive flood of people across the border. You know, Venezuela has, the president's not going to close the border. The Brazilian president said closing the border is unthinkable, channeling Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. But the governor of one of the provinces that they're going into said, we can't handle this. So we had more than 50,000 people flee Venezuela last year into our province that only has 500,000 people. So we can't handle an influx of people that is equal to 10% of the existing population here. We can't provide them health care. We can't provide them housing and education. They got to pay for the schools, just like we have to pay for the schools of all the DACA dreamers who come here, even the MS-13 members who are sent here by their gang. We have to pay for their education. That means that your property taxes go up. That means that your American dream shrinks if it doesn't disappear altogether. And so this Brazilian governor says, we can't handle this. They've got 800 Venezuelans coming across the border every day. But, we had the U.S. caravan from Mexico. That was about 1,500. That was about what comes across the border every day in terms of the number of people that we actually find. The ones that we don't know about, that's even higher. And what do we see in Venezuela? They said there's videos that have surfaced coming out of a prison. They had what was going to be the largest shopping mall in the capital of Venezuela, Caracas, has now been turned into a prison for political prisoners. That's socialism for you. They've got political prisoners in this building that was built to be a mall. They are demanding that there be a stop to the torture there. They said not only are we political prisoners that are being held here, they said there's one of them is the former mayor of San Cristobal. Another person was arrested for refusing to follow orders from Hugo Chavez, so he's been there for a while. Another one is a student opposition leader. Another one is an American hostage. At least one of the prisoners has received a brutal beating for demanding his rights. I think they probably call that in Venezuela enhanced discipline. If they're smart, maybe they'd take a lead from the CIA and just call it enhanced discipline instead of beatings. But the place is so corrupt that the prisoners can get videos out of there because they can bribe the police to get the videos of the beatings and the torture out of there. And they don't have to worry about the person running the torture site deleting the videos like Gina Haspel did. See, that's a big part of the problem. We have the same type of thing here. When we look at the future here, when we look at the way that Bernie Sanders and so many millennials are embracing this socialist system that has done this in Venezuela, and then we look at the conservatives and the GOP because of partisanship and because of an idiotic idea that even if it was true, it would be despicable to say that we're going to torture people because it's effective. But it isn't effective. They don't want to listen to the generals and the admirals who say it's not effective, 109 of them. And so we embrace that here in America, don't we? We're in the process of embracing socialism that has put these people, these political prisoners, in this former shopping mall. And we are embracing, with the promotion of Gina Haspel, the kind of violent terrorism. But unlike Venezuela, we have people in our system that will protect their crimes. Yeah, we're going to take a look at that when we come back. We're going to take a look at Bernie Sanders. He says he's going to, dropping all these hints that he's going to be running in 2020. He was on with Jake Tapper, and they were talking about a book that came out. It's called Run, Bernie, Run. And he says, yeah, I'm encouraging everybody to read that book. And the headline says, Bernie encourages everyone to read a book that pushes him to run in 2020. And it's not the Communist Manifesto. I mean, that's his party platform. His party platform, he offers exactly the same solutions that Hugo Chavez and Maduro offered to the Venezuelans. And the people in America are jumping on it, just like they're jumping on torture. We'll be right back. I'm David Knight. So is America that far away from Venezuela? Are we laying the foundations of Venezuela? We had activists on Monday began 6 weeks of protests calling for new welfare programs to help millions of people in America who live in poverty and other social change, things like voting rights laws changing. We don't want to ID anybody, and we want people who come here from foreign countries looking for a free ride. We want them to be able to vote for the Democrats as well. And so this is what's happening across the country. 7 state capitals, Washington, D.C., the so-called Poor People's Campaign. And we've had the Mises Institute talk about on Zero Hedge the fact that millennial candidates are embracing socialism while Venezuela is choking on it. One of them right here in Texas, running for office over in the Houston area, Franklin Bynum, was unchallenged. Don't even have a Republican running against him. And he won the Democratic nomination to become a criminal court judge in Houston. He's a avowed socialist, and he's not the only one in Texas. At least 16 other socialists appeared on the ballot in primary races across Texas. As they point out, socialism has oozed out of the college classrooms and into the ballot box. He said, yes, I'm running as a socialist. He told the New York Times, I'm running as a far left candidate. What I'm trying to do is to be a Democrat. who actually stands for something and tells people, here's how we're going to materially improve conditions in your life. He's a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, the DSA. They said it's growing by leaps and bounds after Trump's election. Even in conservative states like Texas, their membership has increased from about 5,000 to 35,000 nationwide. Said, our message of socialism resonates with millennials who are making less money than their parents did and are less able to buy a home and are drowning in student debt. Well, you just wait. You may be drowning in student debt, but you're going to be drowning in the debt of the welfare state before long. It's not just going to be your student loan. It's going to be those public pensions and everything else that the Federal Reserve, as I talked about the other day in Illinois, gave us an idea of where this is going. This one person said, named Zachmeyer, said their student loan payment was a burden of $1,000 a month, and it convinced her to become a socialist. There you go. Let's just make that go away. We'll just make it go away. We'll give us all of our socialist students a free ride on the loans. We'll forgive all that. We'll give them all $15 an hour. You know, that's exactly what the socialists in Venezuela did. In response to all this panic, they decided that they would print more money and they would raise the minimum wage. It's the Bernie Sanders program. It's exactly what the Democrat socialists are offering us. New York Times also, you know, they love all this stuff. They were the ones who were celebrating Karl Marx's birthday. Happy birthday, Karl Marx, 200th anniversary a couple of weeks ago. New York Times said, you were right. You were right. Let me tell you something. It's Karl Marx and it's the central bankers. The central bankers, you know, who started the Russian Revolution when they gave the German central bank, gave Vladimir Lenin $10 million in gold, put him on a SEAL train and said, go start the Russian Revolution. They're always there. And I reported earlier this week how at a meeting, the Chicago Federal Reserve Board proposed how to take care of the bankrupt public pension system in Illinois that's bankrupting the state. They said, we got an idea. Let's put a 1% tax on every house. So if you're looking at something that's around the median price of a house, about $250,000, that'd mean you'd pay an additional $2,500 per year on your tax. We'll do that. We'll put that on for at least 30 years, they said. Well, if you look at the debt of the typical Illinois resident, it's $11,000 of debt for every resident. So maybe what they're doing is they're multiplying that out by the number of people in a household, but it isn't going to go away. It doesn't go away. You think that you're going to just wish away your student debt, your student loan? You're going to find yourself fighting with the retired government employees for the pension because they want to get paid as well. So that's the problem. You've run out of other people's money. Margaret Thatcher was so right about this stuff. And this is what is headed towards us in the United States. It's very popular here in the United States to get free stuff. We've got a lot of people who are coming to this country, not for freedom, but because they want free stuff, and we're giving them the right to vote. Welcome back. I'm David Knight on this Friday, May the 18th, 2018. I was just talking at the top of the hour about how popular socialism and Bernie Sanders have become here, even in Texas. We got people who are openly embracing it, especially millennials. They go straight out of their indoctrination camps, we call public schools, colleges, and into the socialist camp. And when we look at how this is going to turn out, of course, everybody is looking at Venezuela. Venezuela is not the only example. They always say, well, it's not a good example, say the American socialists. No, it is a good example. North Korea is a good example. East Germany was a good example. Those are very good controlled experiments because there you had a country, a population that was exactly the same in terms of their culture, their work ethic, everything else. I mean, we always have experiments where we control for nature versus nurture and circumstances. Well, that's what we did when we split East and West Germany and we split North and South Korea. And we know what a socialist, authoritarian command control system does to people. We don't have to guess. And we see it happening again in Venezuela. And the other part of it is the torture of political prisoners that is happening there. As I talked about this, several of the opposition leaders, people who were mayors, for example, who spoke out against Hugo Chavez, still in prison under his successor, who is now going to be running for re-election this weekend. They appeared in videos circulating on social media demanding an end to daily torture and to the release of those who have not been convicted of any crime. Oh, this could never happen in America, right? Let me tell you, it wasn't just the Bundys and the people who were there, some of whom, the Bundys eventually got released. They were in jail for 2 years, but some people surrounding that event are still there. We've got New Jersey weed man, Ed 4chan, has been in jail for quite some time without trial, without bail. We got that in our Constitution. How can that happen? Well, New Jersey said, we're going to have bail reform. We're not going, because we don't like the idea that some poor people can't afford bail. So we're going to just say that everybody gets out of jail free, unless the judge decides that you're not eligible for bail, in which case you're going to stay in there indefinitely. You won't be able to buy your way out with bail at all. You won't get a bail hearing, period. It's a much worse system, quite frankly, because it then depends on the arbitrary judge. It gets even more arbitrary. And so we have a lot of political prisoners, people who do things that the government finds dangerous, like talking about our right to own property when we're talking about being out west, or your right to be able to decide what you're going to put into your body, which is the situation with the marijuana activist, Ed 4chan, New Jersey weed man. So yeah, we do put people in jail that we have not convicted of any crime, and we leave them there for very long periods of time. We've got Marty Gottesfeld, who was trying to help a young girl who was medically kidnapped by Boston Children's Hospital, affiliated with Harvard. And because that's a very powerful institution, he's been in jail now for a couple of years without bail. Can't get out. Hasn't been tried yet, but they're going to keep him there. Allegedly, he hacked their system while they were doing a fundraiser. That was the crime for which he's been in jail for 2 years. He went up against the power structure. Is that much different than Venezuela? Somebody going up against Hugo Chavez? You just keep them in jail. And there they torture them. We would never do that here, would we? Wait a minute, didn't we just have the Senate bipartisan citizen confirm Gina Haspel? As Breitbart said, first woman to serve as a CIA director. She's the first known criminal to be confirmed as a CIA director. The other people, we had to wait until the evidence came to light about their criminal actions. But for Gina, we already know coming in, she's a criminal. So we've got the left that's out there embracing socialism. We got the left that's out there embracing the animals of MS-13. And the right is embracing socialism light, and we're embracing the animals of the CIA. Who's more dangerous? Who's more powerful, the CIA or MS-13? Yeah, MS-13 is bad. But you don't even see all the stuff that the CIA is doing, because we've got people like Gina Haspel deleting those records. See, here in this prison in Venezuela, they can bribe the guards because everybody needs the money. Socialism has taken hold there. They need the money so they can take videos. They can get their demands out. They can actually put them on social media. When we saw what happened at Abu Ghraib, we saw the depravity and the sadistic attitudes of these people who are prison guards there at Abu Ghraib. Some of them went to jail. Their defense was, well, these guys, after they've gotten out, they're very ashamed of themselves. Their neighbors say, yeah, he's a really decent guy. I don't know what happened. He must have just been swept up in the moment, or he must have been, following orders. Yeah, that happens. 2/3 of the people in every country, as we found from the Milgram experiments, it may even be worse now with social media, 2/3 of the people will just follow orders. They don't care. They don't have a higher moral standard. They'll do anything. That's why it's so imperative that we have to have moral leaders. And maybe we should start by putting moral leaders in the Senate, because we just had a bipartisan vote that put Gina Haspel in. The U.S. Senate yesterday confirmed her as the next CIA director, despite deep reservations among some lawmakers that her past involvement and harsh interrogation of terror suspects was a red flag. Well, it also might be a red flag that she obstructed justice. See, if these people at the Abu Ghraib prison went to jail for pictures of their sadistic, sexual, and it's not even torture, I would just call it harassment. Those people were sent to jail. Can you imagine if we actually had the videos that Gina Haspel destroyed? What would happen to, let's say, Gina Haspel or to other people? She should be in jail. In the end, the support came from Senate Democrats to put her over the edge. We had Rand Paul and Jeff Flake vote against it. But there were 6 Democrats. They said this was not the narrowest of Trump nominee confirmations. She got a higher majority than Betsy DeVos or Jeff Sessions or Scott Pruitt. They all had smaller margins of victory. Isn't that amazing? And as the CIA and President Trump were launching an all-out charm offensive, they also got support from James Clapper. This tells you everything. The liar, James Clapper the liar, who was exposed by Ed Snowden just about a month after he lied to everybody and committed perjury, by the way. You know, James Clapper is another guy who should be in jail. He lied under oath to the American people about what he was doing to the American people. And the Republicans let him get away with it. That statute of limitations expired a couple of months ago for that crime. So he didn't go into jail. Instead, he helped his buddy, Gina Haspel, get confirmed, and so did President Trump and the Trump administration. People like Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who I normally agree with, who I normally have a great deal of respect for. I'm very disappointed in what the Trump administration has done here. Rand Paul says, and again, asked the question, was she involved in a secret spying operation? You know, we got James Clapper, who is pushing for her. John Brennan loves her. She was very close to John Brennan. She's very high up. As Rand Paul said, you know, I'm concerned that there are reports that John Brennan, and by the way, remember, it was Rand Paul who filibustered. He didn't filibuster this. It was too wide. There's no point in filibustering it. They probably could have overridden his filibuster right away with 60 votes. That's how pathetic the situation is right now in Washington. But Rand Paul filibustered John Brennan. He was called a clown or something like that for doing that by John McCain. John Brennan was the apologist for Obama's drone assassination program. Gina Haspel is the apologist and the obstructionist for the torture program. And so as John Brennan is promoted, and as Rand Paul says, I'm concerned, there's reports that John Brennan, the former head of the CIA under Obama, was cooperating with British intelligence to spy on the Trump campaign. This is a big deal. I think Gina Haspel is a close acolyte of John Brennan. That means a follower. So I think some have called her a protege. He said there's some accusations that it might have actually been orders by President Obama's administration, either through John Brennan or others. Yes, he was at the very center of this as it was going on. And he's taken the lead as he's become a talking head, John Brennan has. Friend of Gina Haspel. She followed him, as a matter of fact. And it goes a little bit deeper than that. I'll tell you the connections in Washington. Jack Posobiec was very clear about this earlier in the week. Welcome back. I'm David Knight. As Rand Paul was asking questions, saying, you know, we've got this guy, John Brennan. He's kind of at the center of the effort by the intelligence community and the FBI to overthrow the election, to try to run a coup against President Trump. And yet Gina Haspel was very close to him. What is the relationship here? Should we even think about this? He asked this well before the Senate overwhelmingly confirmed her to head the CIA. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. They don't care about that. They don't care that our intelligence community is involved in a coup. I mean, we got people, the FBI put moles in the Trump campaign. We got the CIA and the NSA running ops on people in the Trump campaign. And nobody cares about this? We take somebody who is in the center of all this and we make them the head of the CIA? Is this insane or what? Very, very troubling. And also troubling, I find, is the fact that the American public has embraced this because they have the mistaken belief that this torture program was effective. It wasn't effective, folks. And if you think that it was effective and you think that that excuses what was done, then there isn't any hope for this country. But let's take a look at Gina Haspel. And I just mentioned the questions that Rand Paul made about her connections to John Brennan. Zero Hedge has an article about this. Was Gina Haspel, Trump's new CIA chief, involved in secret spy op on the Trump campaign? They said yesterday we profiled a puff piece that was planted in the New York Times. Attempts to mount a public defense of the FBI ahead of a much-anticipated report by the Department of Justice's Inspector General Horowitz. His first report is expected within weeks. He's also investigating the FBI's conduct during the election. Said it's fairly certain that the FBI embedded at least one mole, possibly more, inside the Trump 2016 campaign. The New York Times piece that they're talking about reveals that the FBI launched Operation Crossfire Hurricane against Trump. sending anti-Trump agent Peter Strzok to London 90 days before the election to meet with Alexander Downer. According to the New York Times, Strzok and Downer met to describe the meeting with Trump campaign advisor George Papadopoulos, in which Papadopoulos purportedly said that he knew that the Russians had Hillary Clinton's hacked emails. The meeting with Downer was described as, quote, highly unusual, unquote. And they said it helped to provide the foundation for a case that a year ago Thursday became the special counsel investigation. So here it is, the very center of the special counsel investigation. The people whose emails we have seen, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, these people going to London to get together with all these people, creating putting together a case to start this phony Russian collusion investigation. They said that there were only about 5 Justice Department officials that were aware of the full scope of the case. Moreover, we know that several other meetings of high-profile individuals involved in the anti-Trump effort occurred in London, where former MI6 agent Christopher Steele is based. So what does this have to do with Gina Haspel? Well, Jack Posobiec laid it out a couple of days ago. And here's what he put in the tweet. You can fit it all in one tweet. There's no excuse for the Senate or for President Trump not to know this. No excuse. Jack Posobiec. Crossfire Hurricane was a code name for Brennan and Comey's operation in London. Next part. Strzok, Steele, Downer, Papadopoulos, Misfud, Halper, and Page meetings were all based in London. Who was the CIA London chief in 2016? Gina Haspel. Gina Haspel. So when you look at it, Brennan is right at the center of all this stuff against the Trump campaign. And as Zero Hedge points out, Paul Sperry said on Wednesday, 2 former colleagues of ex-CIA Director John Brennan have contradicted his claim that the unverified Steele dossier was not part of the U.S. intelligence community assessment on Russian interference in the 2016 election. So just like James Clapper, who lied to the American public about Dragnet surveillance and was exposed as a liar in about a month by Ed Snowden. By the way, that was 5 years ago. So here we are on the 5-year anniversary of Ed Snowden, showing us how criminal the intelligence agencies were. We basically ignored it. Yeah, they passed a little head fake bill that did absolutely nothing to stop these people. And then what happened? After that, we saw them within 3 years. They were involved in operations to overthrow Trump's campaign. And then when that didn't work, they were in operations to overthrow the election of 2016. And now we've got one of this group as the head of the CIA. Brennan was feeding some of the dossier material to President Obama, and he was passing it off as credible. While Brennan was feeding Obama unverified information from the Steele dossier, his acolyte, Gina Haspel, was running the London CIA station in very close proximity to the entire cast of characters in the alleged setup. So the question is Gina Haspel complicit in this coup attempt? Or is she simply incompetent? That's the question if we look at this. But that's okay. They confirmed her, and we're all happy about that because that's what President Trump wanted. So must be the right thing. She even wrote the Senate and said the enhanced interrogation program is not one that the CIA should have undertaken, said Gina Haspel. Well, if that's the case, I guess maybe that's why she destroyed the evidence for them. And then they said, oh, yeah, she did exactly the right thing, did exactly what we wanted to do. I guess if it was moral and if it worked, my question would be, why aren't you continuing it? Don't we want to be tough on terrorists? Don't we want to do whatever it takes, even if our government becomes terrorists, even if we become Venezuela, where we start to lock up political prisoners, we don't turn them loose, we don't give people bail, and then we can torture them in prison as well if we want to, because that's where we're headed. That's where we're headed. Most people in America don't even realize that the government takes your property. Most police departments, state police departments, are funded by stolen goods that they never charged anybody with a crime, let alone found them guilty, in clear violation of the Constitution, in clear violation of human rights spelled out and protected in our Bill of Rights. That doesn't mean anything anymore to anybody in this country. So you don't think that this is going to come back against us? You don't think that what we sow, we will reap? Oh, we will. We're going to get it real good and hard. You know, I look at people looking at the 5th year anniversary of the Snowden leaks, and they say, how a whistleblower changed the world. I don't think it really did change. Here we are 5 years after Ed Snowden. I wish it did. See, we were telling you this stuff was going on before. We hoped that maybe when people saw the evidence, they would want to change. They didn't want to change, even after they saw the evidence. He said, speak not because it is safe. Speak because it is right. That's what Ed Snowden said. And he's been fighting for freedom from government oppression, government oversight, government surveillance. Hasn't changed anything. You know, now we've got a government that is saying, Wall Street Journal, this is on Drudge Report. Want to listen to police scanners? No more, say the cops. See, they will listen to everything that you do. You're not even going to be able to listen to the police scanners. They have a case of a guy who's got a little Radio Shack police scanner. Knoxville, Tennessee, he has a blog, a Knoxville crime Facebook group. And about half the people in the city, the small city that he's operating in, are members of that Facebook group. They're going to cut that off because they don't want you to know anything the police are doing. Nothing at all. But they will know everything about what you're doing. And I'm going to tell you just how deep that rabbit hole goes when we come back. Stay with us.
Staying healthy on the go is just as important as staying healthy at home. But sometimes supplements don't work fast enough. That's why Infowars Life has created a powerful new addition to the Super Blue line, Super Blue Silver Immune Gargle. Available in 1 ounce, 3.5 ounce, and 16 ounce bottles, Immune Gargle is perfect for the bathroom, kitchen, or wherever you go. The incredible new purifying formula is dentist recommended for daily use whenever you feel like you need to stay clean. As a powerful hand purifier or oral cleansing formula, just a small spray will help you stay clean when you feel surrounded by toxins. With powerful yet simple ingredients, Immune Gargle features Silver Sol Nano Silver for a powerful cleansing alternative. With Super Blue Silver Immune Gargle, staying toxin-free is easy and affordable. Help stop the spread of toxins and stay healthy with Super Blue Silver Immune Gargle. Only available at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com.